Pre-game show here. Evening Margins, good to see you. Really, I don't know anything about the PC port. I would have assumed it would be better since, I mean, it runs very well on the 360. That's the version I'm most familiar with. So I'm just used to assuming that anything that runs well on a Microsoft platform also runs well on PC. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's, I haven't played that one. Haven't been able to watch a whole lot this week in the interim, but have got some reading done. I finished this one. This is by Cookie Hipponia. This is We Belong. Cookie Hipponia Everman is the name to look for. As a matter of fact, just 1 second here. Cookie Everman. I'm going to link you to the Penguin Random House link so you can take a look at it yourself. It is a fantastic book that is, if I were to say what it is about, it's about many things, but probably on the highest level it's about balancing different identities from home of origin and home of destination and home of present. And it does this through looking at the Filipino American experience, immigrating from the Philippines in the 1980s to America, and sort of finding out how those identities turn into one. And it explores this through looking at the narrator's past, at their present with their daughters, and also a mythologized version of their family through Filipino mythology. And it's very lovely. It's expertly woven together. There's a lot of interplay between them, where each of these three segments sort of reflect each other, and it's a beautiful prism that has a nice rainbow of insight that spills out from it. If you assume the single, clear, translucent light going into the prism being your gaze. But yeah, I highly recommend it. Cookie was the guest on the most recent Deltahead podcast, and she is a fantastic writer, and an excellent speaker. So I recommend you check that out as well. And you know what? Heck, let's just go ahead and drop that here as well. Evening, Dustin. It's good to see you. Interesting. Huh. Margin, that's interesting, and I'm super curious to know how that shakes out. I was going to get the PC version myself, actually, for the stream, but there's just something inside me that just died a little bit at paying $20 for for like a 13-year-old game. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this. So I went to a local used game store and picked it up for $11, and that was the balm that eased the cheap dad in my heart. Oh yeah, Michael was fantastic. I'm really glad you checked that out, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, Michael brought a fantastic perspective to Gone Home, and I'm very grateful to have not just experienced it myself, but also to have sort of secured that for others so that they can experience that themselves. It's also really, really good to have somebody who is knowledgeable about historical poetry, in particular the Lanier. Lanier? I want to say Lanier. The name of the poet is escaping me specifically, but anyway, her work is great, and he was a fantastic way to engage it. Oh, okay, it's mouse controlled, so that makes a little bit more sense. Probably was designed for controller usage, and maybe just wasn't calibrated right. That's interesting. Other things I read, I received this. This is kind of a nice surprise. This is the Calvert Speller. It is a school child spelling manual, circa 1921. Copyright VM Hillier, copyright Calvert School. And the Calvert Speller is simply a list of words most often used and most often misspelled, arranged in the general order of frequency of use. 300,000 words presented like this. And having gone through it, there doesn't seem to be anything particularly remarkable about this. The number of frequently used and misspelled words from the early... this book is now... Shoot. Wow, hold on. Let's count this out here. This book is now 100 years old. The number of frequently misspelled words seems to be roughly the same now as it was 100 years ago, with the exception of any new words that have entered the vocabulary that see common usage that would not have even had reason to exist back then. Watermelon ranks up here. Hygiene, appendicitis, superintendent. And weirdly, the abbreviation for superintendent, SUPT. That is one I would have gotten wrong many times. And other than that, I was trying to see if I could find a Dead Space poem, a poem that made me think about Dead Space, and I found one that kind of works in a sort of lateral sense. It's by Charles Simic. Charles Simic is one of my favorite poets. This is his 60 poems. You can kind of see there without the glare. And this one is, if you kind of know a little bit about how Dead Space shakes out, Isaac hears voices in the environment, and they're part of a broader plot mechanism that I won't get into too deeply here. But yeah, this kind of made me think of that, especially given the supernatural / religious overtones that those voices seem to have. So this is a good one. It's titled "In the Library." Let me see if I can pull it up in my book directly, because it's much easier to read here. Yeah, there we go. For Octavio. Let's see. There's a book called A Dictionary of Angels. No one had opened it in 50 years, I know, because when I did, the covers creaked, the pages crumbled. There I discovered the angels were once as plentiful as species of flies. The sky at dusk used to be thick with them. You had to wave both arms just to keep them away. Now the sun is shining through the tall windows. The library is a quiet place. Angels and gods huddled in dark, unopened books. The great secret lies on some shelf Miss Jones passes every day on her rounds. She's very tall, so she keeps her head tipped as if listening. The books are whispering. I hear nothing, but she does. And yeah, that is lovely. The thing that I like the most out of this, that the last line, Miss Jones as a character is very interesting as a librarian, as sort of this archivist of, I mean, the angels and gods are sort of portrayed as undesirables here, right? Compared to species of flies, not merely, I mean, that's bundles of flies, groups of flies are associated with a vision of Satan, right? The Beelzebub image. So angels and flies, these sort of divine, angels and gods, these sort of divine beings likened to something essentially satanic, and that have now been cataloged, have been turned into knowledge and stored away. And that changes the atmospheric image from one clouded with buzzing and noise and noxious things representative of disease and decay to something very clear and clean. And that's not entirely necessarily the most positive outcome here, because there's something sort of sterile and clinical about it, and something that is so at peace that there is next to no life in it. In fact, something almost sepulchral about it. And that is the brilliance of Charles Simic, where there is no easy, nice place to land in terms of what you're covering in the poem. That both the past and the present are potentially different shades of undesirable, if that's the way you look at these two elements. And so anyway, that makes me think of Isaac with the running around in his head as our poor tortured engineer in space. So with his poor tortured story in mind, we can get to it.